Friday, St. Louis was supposed to be the gateway for Cinderella. There were two here, Oklahoma and Miami. But when Michigan State slammed the Sooners, was the slipper saved for Wally Szczerbiak and his Red Hawks? Hardly. The Wildcat wrecking crew shattered that dream too. Cinderella was gone. Only the strongest had survived. The Spartans, with their unwavering confidence, drawing magical comparisons to 1979. And Tom Izzo knows it. While Kentucky's three seniors are just as resolute in focus and purpose. A salute to their championship tradition. The look says it all. No one will settle for anything less than the final spot at the Final Four. St. Louis will indeed provide the final piece of the puzzle. Who will be the final team to qualify for St. Petersburg and next week's Final Four? Will it be Kentucky, the national champions of a year ago, or the Michigan State Spartans? Already, Ohio State, Connecticut, and Duke have qualified, and one remains. One spot left open. Michigan State and Kentucky coming up here in St. Louis. Jim Nance with Billy Packer and Bonnie Bernstein with us as well. And Billy, this Kentucky team, as Scott Padgett said, it's March, and our biological calendars have clicked in. They're playing their best ball of the season, but Michigan State has an all-time school win streak of 21 in a row. What's going to give here?
Jim, in the NCAA tournament, you see so many games of contrast, but not today. We've got great point guards on both teams. We have tremendous bench strength. We have outstanding rebounding. The one thing different is that Kentucky's been there before. Michigan State's going to have to prove they can knock off the champ.
And what floor leadership we have at the point today on both sides. But how about Mateen Cleaves, the Big Ten Player of the Year?
Well, he is so strong, a great penetrator. We have two outstanding point guards. Neither one shoot the ball too well, and that could be interesting today to watch that matchup. But Cleaves is a tremendous leader. Now, you talk about leadership and senior. We're talking about Scott Padgett. Twice he has been all Final Four, scored 17 in the championship games the last 2 years. He knows how to pick it up in the big games. He certainly can be expected for that leadership again today.
And there's Tubby Smith. He began the 90s as a Kentucky assistant under Rick Pitino. He'd like to close the 90s with back-to-back championships. Padgett and Bradley and Evans on the front court. In the back court, Wayne Turner, Mr. March, along with Desmond Allison, a freshman from Tampa, who'd like to go home for the Final Four. Tom Izzo, second season, actually 4 overall, 4 seasons, and a year ago he was the National Coach of the Year. Jason Klein, Andre Hudson, Antonio Smith, with the backcourt of Cleaves and Charlie Bell. And let's check in quickly with Bonnie.
All right, Jim, a couple minutes before the game, touch base with Spartans coach Tom Izzo, and he said he's not so much concerned about Kentucky's depth as he is their size. Couple things to look for to counter that. First of all, look for reserve forward Morris Peterson to play more at the 2-guard or shooting guard position today. Also, look for the Spartans to try to get Scott Padgett to foul early. Obviously, the Cats aren't as good of a team when Padgett isn't on the floor. They know that if he gets a couple fouls early, Tubby Smith will sit him. Jim?
Well, the Kentucky Wildcats. The road to the regional final began with a win over New Mexico State. That was a tie game at the half. And then the thriller, some have said the game of the tournament thus far, the overtime win against Kansas with Padgett nailing the big shot. And the victory against Miami here on Friday night. For Michigan State, the 1 seed, Mount St. Mary's, Ole Miss, that was a struggle. They were down with 3.5 to play. And Oklahoma. Now, the Spartans say they have to be careful here. We don't want to play the jersey. It can be intimidating. Look at the lettering, Kentucky. We want to go against the play the players. That's what they're saying. Klein starts it out way short, but follows it up with a rebound.
Jason Klein is a real key in this ball game for Michigan State. It's good to see him take a positive shot right away because he has not been shooting well in the tournament.
How about this matchup at the point, Billy?
Oh, that's just tremendous. Both can guard each other. Turner not as strong, but he's got the long wingspan. Great defensive balance when he plays, and this is going to be some matchup. Gets the switch on the screen.
Bounces it over. Tough pass, but it got there. Hudson misses. He follows it up, and Evans clears for Kentucky. They had 3 chances on their first possession.
But Michigan State showing what they do so well, and that is get on the rebounding glass.
Which team is the better rebounding team today, you think? Evans rattles home a 2, they say.
On the season, Michigan State has been outstanding, but it's not like Kentucky's far behind. Michigan State, #2 team in the nation in regard to rebounding differential at 9.7 a game. Kentucky right in there at 6-3, so they've been solid off the boards as well.
Kentucky's out-rebounded opponents in the tournament by 10 boards a game. Hudson back out to Cleaves, gets Ellison to commit, into Hudson.
Jim, I've said it time and time again, neither of these guards, in neither case should you rush out on them. Make them shoot the outside shot early in the game. Allison went for the pump fake and created the mismatch inside. That's a steps.
Yep, Bradley backing in on Hudson. He traveled.
You wonder why time and time again guys rush out at the likes of a Cleaves or a Turner when you got to let them shoot the jump shot, because they can penetrate. They don't want the jump shot. Full court pickup here by Kentucky. Man-to-man pressure. This is a tough guy to press right here.
Although Cleaves turns it over, and he's had 6 turnovers in each of the last 2 games.
I'm surprised he took the ball that low. Normally you want to stop. If you don't have a play, stop around the foul line and bring it back out. He took it all the way to the baseline, and Allison, with his strength, was able to give him a little shove. This is an interesting matchup. Smith on Padgett.
You thought it might be Hudson on
Yeah,
Padgett.
I thought so. This takes Smith away from the basket. I think he'd be better off down inside.
Allison with the layup, assisted by Turner. Ahead to Bell, and Hudson intercepted it from his own teammate.
If Hudson didn't realize Bell was ahead of him, Bell would have had a layup. We know Mateen loves to throw that lead pass with that right hand. So good at it.
Bell drives, gives Hudson in and out.
Second time Hudson has missed one from 3 inches.
Tough pass, and Smith read it all the way.
Well, Allison had the cutter behind, but you can't thread it right into a Michigan State player's hands. And you notice down the other end, it is Padgett on Hudson and Bradley going to play in Smith, so a more natural matchup.
Line, his second try of the game, again short. And Smith hit by Evans.
This Michigan State team is some kind of rebounding basketball team off the offensive end. And Jim, I mentioned about the situation where they've got to get Klein doing something. He was 1 for 5 against Mississippi, 1 for 5 against Oklahoma. He has got to put some points on from the perimeter.
Lost his dribble and touched it last. Kentucky ball.
And we're going to see Peterson come in for Klein right off the bat. This is Tom Izzo cannot wait in a game like this for Klein to get on track. Got hit in the eye here a little bit, but even besides that, I think Tom Izzo was ready to yank him.
So Morris Peterson, the leading scorer for the Spartans, comes in.
Now this makes Michigan State a tougher team to defend, because Peterson all Big Ten, even though he's the so-called 6th man, but it does take away a little bit of the depth, and you know it's got to shake Klein's confidence. Little 1-4 set now by Kentucky. Padgett's got to find the ball somehow to make Smith play.
Hashimu followed up by Bradley and touched last by Michigan State. Michigan State 32-4 on the year. Their first appearance in the Elite 8 since 1979 when they went on to win the championship in Salt Lake City. Kentucky eyeing a 4th straight trip to the Final Four. They've been in the last 3 championship games, winning 2 of them. Only a loss to Arizona in the '97 final, prevented a three-peat. Allison, baseline, over to Evans, 2.
Once again, running at men that aren't wanting to take the jump shots.
Bell blocked by Padgett, and they say a charge. Bradley held his ground.
Terrific job by Bradley to hustle back down court. Bell had the seam. Charlie Bell goes down inside, and there you see Bradley there. Paget was on top of the ball. Bell said something that I thought was great right out of a page of Ric Flair. He said, to be the best, you've got to beat the best. You know, that's exactly what this game is all about.
That wrestling analogy was used quite a bit yesterday when these teams talked to the nation's press. In fact, Paget said if he had to pick one wrestler that really embodied Michigan State, as we see Evans knocked down a three, he said they remind me if I had to pick a wrestler to compare Michigan State to, it would be Ric Flair, because they wear you down at the end.
You could just see him saying that, couldn't you, in the ring?
Absolutely. A neighbor of yours, no less.
That's right. Again, they're backing off Cleves, and that's what you've got to do to him early in the ball game. Another great offensive rebound.
Peterson under the basket frees himself for two.
Peterson so consistent.
Evans back out. Turner gives it up. Allison, the freshman, three-pointer. Paget tip, and Smith clears.
Smith, one of those wide bodies at 265 pounds.
Bell had a man open underneath. Bypass the lob, and Evans with the 2-on-1 over to Turner for two.
If you're going to break, and Bell finds himself as a guard, that leaves only one man back. Kentucky really loves to break, particularly Evans, Paget, Allison can get all on it. Bell has got to understand if he's going inside, there needs to be a rotation. Much more of an up-tempo game, Jim. More scoring than I expected early.
Cleves, tough shot, tipped away, and Bradley has it for Kentucky.
And
Evans drives right past Bell. Good night.
there is that experience, Jim. It just seems like they belong in Final Fours, and Evans knows how to get there.
Michigan State with its largest deficit of the tournament. The Spartans are down 9 in the first 5.5. Well, Kentucky came to St. Louis this week for the first time since 1978 and the Final Four. And Kentucky met Duke in the championship game. Jack Givens, what a performance. 41 points in the final as Kentucky won its 5th national championship, 94-88 over Duke.
Well, it was one of the great shooting performances, and those who watched that scene closely, Jack even banked one off the side of the backboard that went in. Jim, what's interesting about 78, Kentucky beat Miami in the regional
as they did here,
and then they beat Magic Johnson's freshman club. Kyle Macy had an outstanding game. I remember broadcasting that game, and they beat Michigan State in the regional final. And then they went on, of course, to play so well in the Final Four, capped off with that win over Duke.
There is some symmetry, no doubt, between the 78.
That was in St. Louis.
And it all was here. Yep. Well, that was Dayton where they beat Michigan State in the regional final.
The final game was in St. Louis.
At the Checker Dome, which no longer exists here in St. Louis. But it is an interesting path that they're trying to travel one more time. Kelly, the senior, gives it up. Cleves in traffic, loses it. McGlure on the floor, and a tie-up. Wildcats have the arrow. Will they say there was a change of possession?
Now, kind of interesting, and we'll see if Tubby's going to change that. Oh! He's going to the arrow. Nobody had possession. They're saying no one had possession, so he's going to the arrow.
And there is a timeout on the floor. Moo Evans with 9 points here at the start, and the Kentucky starters ablaze early.
And Red, they're just outstanding. Rebounding could be Achilles' heel. Scotty Penn, one of their outstanding rebounders, and particularly when you consider who else is in the Final Four so far, and the lack, obviously, of big game experience. The last time that Ohio State was in the Final Four, none of the kids on this basketball team were even born.
1968.
68, exactly.
So their first trip since 68, while UConn's first trip ever.
They were kind of a permanent fixture in the early 60s with Jerry Lucas and company, going to 3 straight Final Fours. But it's been quite a drought since.
Hats off to Jim O'Brien. What a story.
Evans.
7 on the shot clock. Evans with the right hand, followed up by Bradley.
Kentucky just being dominant on the boards here. Granger was hot and continues from the outside. Had a sensational first half just the other day against Oklahoma, where he ended up 4 for 5, 10.7 rebounds.
Back to Bradley. Oh, not this time. Tipped up by Padgett. Bradley on the previous follow-up slam. That was his first made field goal since the opening half of game 1 of this tournament, New Mexico State.
And Bradley has really been in a drought, Jim. 3 points the game previously, none in the ball game the other night.
Granger again, three-pointer. Look at this man. A.J. Granger, junior from Findlay, Ohio.
Well, let's say something. You know, only one team has outscored the Michigan State bench this year. That was a game that Iowa played, so this bench has been very productive.
Evans, he's drilling it today. That's a 3 at the other end.
Memories of the Maryland game. Evans just sensational. He's been at Kentucky now, 3 years of eligibility, played under 3 different coaches. Although recruited by, actually he recruited Rick Pitino. So he's played for 3 coaches and never got a chance to play for Rick.
He got to practice with that 97 team that went to the final and had a huge role off the bench last year in helping the Cats to the title, the 7th in school history.
Good pick and roll.
Smith banks bodies, and they'll call it on Padgett. Duke by 21 to head to the Final Four with only 1 loss. That to Cincinnati. Duke beat both of these teams on the floor right now. It beat Kentucky by 11 and Michigan State by 6. Mentioned it earlier. They led Michigan State 21-4 at the top of that game before the Spartans crawled within 3, only to drop it by 6.
Jim, that's the second time that Duke has upset John Chaney's bid to get into the Final Four, and back in 1988, the great game by Billy King, Garden, Mark Macon shutting him down. Danny Ferry's club went to the Final Four, losing to Kansas.
Andre Hudson returns for Smith.
It looks like Granger getting some instructions out there, and probably those instructions are just keep lighting it up.
Yeah, you take Granger, who comes in from off the bench and knock down a couple of threes, take him away. The Michigan State starters have made only 1 out of 10 shots.
Cleve's back in the ball game now. Had a chance to watch what's going on out there. Let's see how he settles down his club on the offensive end. Evans is becoming the toughest matchup, and he really wants the ball.
Allison, last minute over to Padgett on the wing for the 3, and it spins out. Last touch by Michigan State's Bell.
Now that's the second time in this game that Hudson and Bell have gotten messed up. Remember, Jim, on that long pass, Hudson intercepted Bell. That time Bell had the easy rebound. Hudson came over his back. Needs to be a little bit of communication there. Michigan State drops back in the zone on this out-of-bounds situation. I think a good defense against this basketball team right now. So Kentucky proves they've got somebody other than Padgett can make a jump shot.
Evans doing it all. Back to Allison, short in the lane, but back out to Turner. A long Kentucky trip. Will it result in points?
Oh, Padgett wanted the ball back.
There, he got it. And he's hammered by Peterson.
You know, Padgett was really disappointed because he made a great cut down through the zone and didn't get the ball. You see it right here. Great pass by Turner. Hey, when you've played with a guy as many games, as many hours as those two have, you know exactly where he is and when he's open. He didn't need to holler or hold up his hands. Turner just felt him there.
Scott Padgett, who yesterday was asked what was his most prized memory, or what will be, of his Kentucky career, and he says hasn't happened yet. It will be his degree when he receives it in May. There's his father, Wilbur. He instilled in his son that love of Kentucky basketball. Scott said he was always confident he could play ball, but he thought that freshman year the college work was just impossible. And once he got the handle on it, he's been Dean's List and will graduate in May. Dean's List several times.
Padgett's amazing, shooting 68% on the year for the foul line, but in the NCAA tournament, he has a chance to move right up there with one of the all-time leaders, Christian Laettner, and Bill Bradley, who's the all-time greatest free throw shooter in NCAA tournament history.
He had
90%.
He had to make 2 free throws to qualify statistically, and he just did it.
Yep.
Bradley, all-time #1, 90% in the tournament. Hudson, fade away, nice shot. Yeah, so Padgett's into the top 5 all time. He's behind Bradley, but he's ahead of Christian Laettner.
You know, Hudson is becoming a major scorer in this postseason play, where Peterson has fallen back some.
Oh, and away from the ball. McGlure is called for it. Monday on CBS, find out why TV Guide is calling it the best season yet for Everybody Loves Raymond. Monday night's #1 comedy, Everybody Loves Raymond, right here on CBS. It's the first on McGlure.
I think it'd be a good time right now to go to Antonio Smith down inside. McGlure's got a foul. Get Smith some touches. He hasn't had many offensive looks the last couple of games.
Peterson, leaner for 2.
Uh-oh, who's the foul? Did McGlure get to Smith?
They're going to call it on Peterson. No, not on Peterson. Hold on a minute here.
Watch this. Here's what I've been talking about. McGlure talking, pushing in there. He might have gotten to Smith some.
Smith has called for it, Billy.
Foolish foul by a senior.
Padgett and the Cats get a little cozy, and they lead by 8. Hashimu Evans with 12 points, and Mateen Cleaves has not scored. 2 tries from the field. It's been as big a lead as 13 for the Wildcats, down to 8.
Jim, one of the things that Evans is such an explosive scorer, but I think we're going to see Michigan State go to a little bit more zone defense, try to get themselves back in a situation to get on the boards and force Kentucky to shoot from the outside a little bit. Evans' penetration has been outstanding, and with the team that's on the floor right now, Prince a decent outside shooter, Padgett is as well, but Michigan State comes back out in that man-to-man defense. So far, Kentucky has really been able to take advantage of it. There they've got Bell on Padgett. Padgett too big for him.
Padgett with the fake, the ball fake, but Peterson almost stripped it. And it leads to a Michigan State takeaway. Michigan State's only losses this year to Temple, which made it to the Final 8. Duke and UConn, which are all set now for the Final 4, and Wisconsin. 32-4.
Jim, Antonio Smith only had 1 shot in the ball game against Oklahoma. They need to get him the ball some down in low.
Peterson over the top of Evans. It's a 2.
If they get the ball down in low, that can open up some things for the likes of Peterson and Bell. Good comeback by Michigan State. Evans wanted to set some back screens. Prince didn't come off.
The first spurt of the game for the Spartans, a 6-point run.
They're giving McGlure an opportunity to handle the ball inside.
Turner way short. And last touch by Michigan State. 3rd time they fumbled it under the basket.
New 35-second shot clock as well because it touched Michigan State.
Michael Bradley returns for McGlure. Kentucky approaching 4 minutes without a field goal. Misfiring on their last 5.
Bradley hasn't been able to get into the offensive maneuver as well. He was a real scoring threat halfway through the season. There he is open inside.
Bradley snaps it over to Padgett. Right back over to Turner. Regains control of it. Back out high. Look at this passing. 3-point shot. Back to the rim. Spartans chase it down.
Smith now over 1,000 rebounds in his career.
That only trails 2 guys there, Billy. All time in Michigan State history. Greg Kelser and Johnny Green.
Jumpin' Johnny Green, 1957, led Michigan State Spartans to the Final 4, losing in 3 overtimes to North Carolina. One of the great leapers in college basketball history. Only about 6'5".
5 on the shot clock underneath. Hudson and 1.
As weak side helped that time by Padgett, but Evans did not drop down to fill in the space.
That's the 2nd on Evans. This team was down 17-4.
Jim, we'll see what happens right here. Padgett comes over, but Evans has to drop back down and fill.
Thumbs up says Wayne Turner.
Please.
Hey, us too, says Mateen. Hey, they know what that means.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's not like teams don't scout each other.
Hudson, he made his last 6 attempts against Oklahoma, completes the 3-point play. So it's a 9-point run for the Spartans as Saul Smith replaces Evans to the bench with two personals. Klein,
who'd been almost a 10-point per game scorer, has really dropped off. Hudson, who was at 8-6, has moved up. So kind of a standoff there. Don't want Turner to get that close to the basket.
Too strong with the shot.
Smith, one of those guys, has a nose for the ball. Boy, he just goes for rebounds.
Cleves got caught for a moment. Smith comes back out with it.
Nice decision by Smith. He was off balance for the shot.
Switch off. Cleves will take the jumper. And Padgett has it for Kentucky. Stripped away. Smith.
You know what? That hits Smith's toe.
And it's Kentucky ball.
Absolutely brilliant play by Saul Smith chasing that down. And Antonio showing some real speed himself. You're talking about a 265-pounder here. Actually weighs less than one of his brothers, who's an NFL football player at 290. But good job by Saul Smith chasing it down.
Is that? It would have cut the lead to 1. Yeah, he has 2 brothers. One, Fernando, plays in the NFL. Fernando Smith, the brother of Antonio. And Robert, who's a defensive end at Michigan State. So there's a little size in that family.
I guarantee you, nobody picked in that neighborhood on that family. When they said, boys, let's get the neighborhood quiet, I guarantee it got quiet.
And there were some second helpings, too, at the table. Saul Smith, 3-pointer, short. Prince, yes, throws it in. That breaks a 6-minute drought.
Kind of interesting. Tubby's changed his lineup here from what he's been doing, and there's what Cleves and Turner do so well. They can take the ball to the hoop and create. Cleves anticipating the pass out, was ready to step out for a steal. Here we've got that second unit in now. But the one thing that Kentucky is not going to be able to do against Michigan State is wear them down, because Michigan State's bench is productive too.
7 on the shot clock. Kamara out high with the pick. Smith needs some help.
Boy, what a great job by Antonio Smith. He got caught in the mismatch and stayed right with a guard.
Boo Evans leads all scorers but 12, but the Kentucky 13-point lead is down to 3. With Bonnie Bernstein and Billy Packer. Jim Nance from St. Louis. We discussed earlier Ohio State's season and the report card. They're advancing to the Final Four to take on the UConn Huskies. And what about the Huskies report card, Billy?
Well, this is a very well-balanced team. They have explosive scoring. Even though Elamine yesterday was 0 for 12, you know that he can light it up. They really have no Final Four experience, and that could cost them a little bit. Maybe the excitement of getting there, and points off the bench. They can come off with some explosive scores as well. So very well balanced team. Connecticut's tough out for anybody.
Connecticut versus Ohio State all set. It'll be Duke against the winner of this game in St. Petersburg next Saturday.
Let's see Kentucky. They drop back to the 2-3 zone now. Peterson's a guy to be looking for here. They've got Klein and Peterson on the elbows. It's not like Granger's not a pretty good shooter too, so this should match up well against this defense.
Well, they double-teamed Granger the minute he touched it. 5 on the shot clock. Klein must do something.
He didn't want to take the shot.
The heave from Cleves and back out to him.
What they ought to do against this particular defense is put somebody on the foul line right in the middle and get the ball in the middle and then out to the opposite side.
Jason Klein can tie it.
Just
still ice cold. Yep, ice cold.
And Tom Izzo walks down the other end of the bench and just turns his head. He's got to have some points out of Klein in a game like this.
Klein 0 for 4 from the field.
Boy, McGlure just bodying on the inside and beats Granger with power.
Before the shot, Granger whistled for it. Coming up, Pennzoil at the half, Greg and Clark, along with Coach Majerus. And we'll get you caught up on all the tournament news, plus a conversation with Final Four bound Ohio State coach Jim O'Brien. All coming up on Pennzoil at the half.
Jim, we're playing in a dome, and Kentucky has won 6 straight in a dome. I mean, 17 straight overall, all 6 of their games. The SEC tournament was played in the Georgia Dome, then we're down to the Superdome for 2, and back here, so they sure don't mind the depth perception with their shooting.
Prince.
Example.
There's a 3. Yes, overall, Billy, you said it. 17 straight dome wins. Scott Padgett asked him about that yesterday, and he said he thinks it's not so much the atmosphere, it's the fact that Kentucky has such a huge throng of supporters, and they can always have more Kentucky fans in a dome than anybody else.
Could have a big factor.
Yeah, it really feels like a home game because Kentucky does travel. So the 3 by Prince ups the lead to 6. You look at the tournament summary, the Big Ten with a 12-5 record, certainly deserving, as it appears now, Billy, the 7 spots.
Yeah, absolutely.
What conference had the best win percentage in this year's tournament? The West Coast Conference with Gonzaga 3-1, 75% win percentage.
You know, I'd say something about that team, Jim. I hadn't seen them all year until obviously this NCAA tournament. After watching them yesterday, they were not an upset team. That was not a Cinderella basketball team. That team could play on this court or any other court with any other team in the United States. I mean, a really high caliber basketball team.
Magnificent run enjoyed by all by the Gonzaga Bulldogs to the final 8. Final 1:45 of the half. Peterson on the drive and a block on McGlure, who bounces to his feet. Can't believe it. Let's check the CBS Sportsline stat to this point, and offensive rebounds. Kentucky with more second chances than Michigan State. We've got complete tournament coverage at cbs.sportsline.com. Morris Peterson to shoot 2.
All Big Ten first team, but accepted a role on this team as being a 6th man.
I kind of felt for him yesterday because they limit the access to the players and coaches on that day between the semifinal and the final here at the regionals, and they brought up for Michigan State all 5 starters, but not Morris Peterson, and he's all Big Ten and a starter, so not recognized as one of the 5 yesterday even. He operates quietly and efficiently.
Well, I don't think that's the kind of thing that would knock him off stride. He's already accepted. He knows what he's accomplished. This is where that ball needs to spend more time. Down in Smith's hands to force the Kentucky defense to collapse a little bit.
Granger for a 3rd time today. A.J. Granger.
Boy, and Tom Izzo can be so happy with that young man because he's picked up the slack where Klein has fallen off. And he looks so positive with that jump shot, doesn't he?
He does. He is the Spartan star of the first half with 9. Reach around called on Klein.
Say something about Granger, too. His biggest point production on the year was the day after he learned that his father had had that horrible accident, surfing accident in Hawaii. He came back and had his biggest point production of the season. So shows the kind of concentration and competitor a young man is.
His father fractured 2 vertebrae while body surfing over in Hawaii. The Spartans were over in a tournament, and there he is. There's Joe Granger. Now you can't get too excited even with his son hitting 3 out of 3 from 3. It's kind of you talk about having to harness your enthusiasm. And Prince for a 2nd time.
Well, he's hit 2 from the outside, and remember that nice curling hook shot he made inside. Tubby Smith is amazing how he manipulates this bench and seems to find answers every game coming off. It was Kamara 2 days ago, and now it's Prince. There's the zone, but still nobody in the center.
Klein at last, and knocks it down to 2.
Tom Izzo just looks up at the Lord and says, thank goodness he's hit one. And how important to hit it right before the half, so he doesn't have to sit in that locker room wondering when one's ever going to go down.
Shot clock is turned off.
Would be the biggest shot of his career right there to get his confidence restored.
And a 20 called by Tubby.
He loves to do this. Set plays, he's screaming at his club to get over.
While we have a moment, let's check the data bank, Billy. Final 4 appearances in the 1990s. The Cats with 4. And the Big Ten Conference overall with 5.
Jim, let me point out something. If Kentucky were to get to this Final Four this year, they would tie North Carolina and UCLA with 14 as the 3 schools that have the most Final Four appearances of anybody in the history of basketball.
Carolina and UCLA lead the way, 14 all-time Final Four appearances, and the Cats just one behind. They can join them today at the top.
Little Sullivan.
Kamara left open, and Turner spotted him.
Terrible misread by Michigan State.
Cleaves has to fire it. Oh, what a shot to go to the locker room.
He's made 3 this year at the buzzer or thereabouts to go for victories. And how big was that one?
Huge. Cleaves not known for his outside shooting, but can he handle it when the seconds are winding down?
Kid's got so much courage, but it was a big breakdown defensively that set that up for Michigan State. He had a pretty good looking release on this shot. That's the most range we've seen him have in 2 years of watching.
That's the end of the first half. And there's Mateen's mother, just loving it, as she should. Francis gets a celebratory hug.
What if she's wearing those lucky socks? She says she wears them dirty or clean, and she probably had them on there.
Kentucky leads 36-35 at halftime, and CBS Sports exclusive coverage of the NCAA Basketball Championship will continue after this message.
CBS Sports exclusive coverage of the NCAA Basketball Championship is sponsored by Pontiac Grand Am, Microsoft, the United States Postal Service, and by Scott's Lawn Products. CBS.